They hang the man and flog the woman that steal the goose from off the common. But let the greater villain loose that steals the common from the goose. The law demands that we atone when we take things we do not own, but leaves the lords and ladies fine who take things that are yours and mine, yours and yours and yours and yours and yours and yours and yours.
Hello, everybody. It's Right Diaper Baby, the show about capitalism, crisis, and childcare. You can find out how to follow the show on all your social medias and listen to more episodes at rdbshow.com. I'm Brynn, here with my co-host,
Ben. Hello, Ben. How are you? Episode 2. How's it going?
Good. Yes, we're at episode 2. I've been excited and nervous about this episode. It's the most important one.
Is that what they say at Podcasting University?
I don't know. It's what it says in my brain.
I dropped out of Podcasting Community College. I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah, I tried, but the problem was that I couldn't get past the branding class. It just felt too yucky. When they
I know.
Like make your logo and
how to sell yourself.
Yeah, how to read the analytics. Good God. But if you discovered our show because you didn't know us personally, hi, that's really exciting.
Hi, yes, thanks for coming back.
Absolutely. It was really great to get our first episode done and put it out there. I hope the intro wasn't too weird. I thought it was fun. I don't know
I loved it.
Are we really out of touch by doing being in our 30s and doing vaporwave stuff? I'm really self-conscious about am I the Korean war vet who acts like he's into a punk, am I really out of touch, or is this actually fine? It's a hard thing to tell.
I mean, as a 30-something, I think it's fine, but that might just show how out of touch I am. So
yeah, right. Are we actually 3 things past vaporwave? We probably are. But speaking of things that we are not past, coronavirus, COVID-19.
Oof. And who just recently got COVID-19 and is not past it? Donald Trump.
Oh, yes, Donald Trump, our president, who obviously the two of us huge fans, right?
Oh,
huge
yes.
Fans. Obviously, right? When you see us, you think, oh man, look at those MAGA chuds.
Oh, there is no better display of poetic justice than this.
I know, it's pretty amazing. When I woke up on Friday, first off, my wife found out in the middle of the night, and she was very kind because on Fridays I get to sleep in 30 minutes extra because it's a half day at my current nanny job, and she didn't wake me up, but the second I woke up, she just ran into the room being like, Trump has COVID.
It's like Christmas morning or the first night of Hanukkah.
Yes. The first night of Hanukkah. Always the best night. Always the best night.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Although, when you think about it, sorry, it's a slight tangent. If you're going to, the first night of Hanukkah actually would not be an exciting night at all because the oil, they had enough for one night, so that's not a big deal. The big deal when you get into 5, 6, 7, that's when it starts to actually matter. Trump has COVID. I definitely every time I heard my phone beep, I was like, oh my god, is Trump dead? Oh my god, is Trump dead?
I know, I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, this is too good to be true. He's fine. He's not gonna get actually sick. I was this is great, this is funny, and then it just continued to go down from the hill from there, and I was like, it feels like I'm in a dream.
I know
what is happening. I was like, this is the best thing to happen all year, even over my wedding. No.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, your wedding was probably sort of dampened because of COVID, so this is payback for it, right?
Oh yeah, it definitely made up for it. Mwah. I mean, it is not that I wish harm on anybody, but my God.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, just he's playing with fire and he's such an asshole. And just, I mean, like, what a perfect way to just like reap what you sow. I mean, just, I and then watching each and every single other Republican in that party that was at his fucking fundraiser.
Yeah.
Positive. And then speaking of children with COVID, fucking Kellyanne Conway's fucking daughter narking her ass out.
I love Kellyanne. That is a like I was about that age when my parents got a divorce, and it seems like they might be getting a divorce too, and maybe that divorce is just from the daughter from her parents, but that is a fucked up family because isn't Kellyanne Conway's husband and her daughter's father, isn't he like one of those like never Trump Republicans? So like it's like a whole mess. Like I can't tell. Is it they're just all grifters? Like they're just all just trying to get a job. They don't really have any principles. I mean, of course they don't have principles, but like her daughter just like doing TikToks just about like just revealing like family secrets is pretty incredible.
Well, this was my first introduction to her. I was like,
oh wow,
who this bitch? And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my God, I love her. I follow her on TikTok. Well, I mean, and that's the problem. I think if we're talking about being old, I don't know anything about TikTok. So I know that it's an old Vine, and even then I was too old. I was like, what are this? Is this the thing that the young kids are doing?
Yeah, I know. No. TikToks, it actually has come up on our local nanny Facebook board, which you can only get in if you're a nanny. I believe you're a member, but
actually I was,
and then you left.
Then no, I got kicked out for being too political.
What? Because it's so political now.
Yeah, I wasn't the right kind of political. I wasn't center. I wasn't a neoliberal in that.
No.
It was too radical.
That's fascinating. Oh man, we're gonna have to talk about that at some point. You were shadow banned. A thing that I think both of us have in common, though, with the current state of our commander in chief, my president, mine. He has gotten a contagious disease. And as anyone who has worked in a childcare center or school definitely knows, or has had a child in one of these centers, is you get sick all the time. So, Brynn, I'm curious, what is your experience getting sick, and what was the worst way you ever got sick while working at a childcare center? Because I got a good one, but you go first.
Well, I mean, in the the 19 years that I've worked in childcare, I mean, the most I got sick is when I was actually working in centers and schools, right? And when I worked in the toddler preschool classrooms, because, they just lick and touch and snot on everything. And it doesn't matter if you wash your hands. It doesn't matter if they wash their hands, because one, they don't wash their hands. They just put those little hands under the water for like a half a second and pull it out. But
or they put their hands under the water for long enough, it's because they're splashing it everywhere, thus spreading germs even more intensely.
Oh yeah, where you're having to mop up the bathroom floor,
my God,
or the wet paper towels that they've slapped onto the floor.
Yes.
Or the peeing beside the toilet.
Yes, of course.
Which, oh my God, yeah. Oh, what a time. But
I will say sorry for that, because I'm now nannying 3 boys who are all like potty age. I am mopping up piss off the ground probably like 4 times a day. And it's not because that it happens 4 times a day. It's that if I did it every time, I would be in the bathroom all day.
Oh yeah, that's like 100% truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, I do because they're children, and it's like, yeah, of course they piss on the floor. But
I think they do it on purpose sometimes. I really do.
Oh,
it's just too much. It's just too much fun. They love playing with hoses, so it's a fact of their body. Just love it so much, you know.
Being able to spray any sort of liquid anywhere is so much fun.
Exactly. Oh. Did you ever get what was like the worst illness you ever got? Like, did you ever get the flu or like get something where you had like a really intense like vomiting or anything?
I have had all of it, but the one that has repeated itself over and over and over again is I would get severe bronchitis every March, and I'd be out for at least 2 weeks. Like, and it was just awful. Like, I mean, and then that's also the worst part is because, as you know, you are not allowed to be sick.
I was gonna bring that up. Because you are not allowed to be sick, even though everyone is sick, and it's super unhealthy, and it makes everyone hate their job, and it's already a hard job.
You're just dragging ass because you feel like garbage, but you have to pretend you don't feel like garbage, and then you just watch the kids just go. And you're like, oh my God, child, it's because of you and you and you and I love you all, but my God, you little germ germ factories. I mean, I have been puked on, I have been peed on, I've gotten poop on my body from them. I have had to wipe boogers off of myself and other things. I mean, it's a wonder I wasn't just like hospitalized being sick all the time.
I know.
I know. Well, it's just hard because you've got the policies within, the centers and you have your staff policy and the family's policy, right? And you can only be sick so many days in a row without a doctor's note. You have to use, now most places roll PTO or your sick pay and your vacation into PTO so that they can give you less time. And so you end up just spending all of that on being sick and not actually going on vacation. And then if you've already used that, then you get dinged or written up for going over and being out, which is garbage. But it's, I don't know, it's a hard one because then you have the family, the kid, as you know, they have to have a fever accompanied by blah, blah, blah. And it has to be at least 101. And then you can send them home and then they can come back, fever free, unassisted fever reducer. But you think, oh, great. That seems like a really great policy, but no, because nobody wants to bother parents because they're at work, which I understand. It's hard, but basically they make every excuse in the book to not send that child home, which then in turn gets every other child sick and you sick. But the expectation is that you stay there and every single one of those children stays there. So it's just this vicious cycle of getting sick over and over again.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that whole sort of like the incentive, the like structural impediment of it all is like rooted in the fact that like these parents probably have their own shitty jobs where they have to, like, if they miss any time, if they have to go get their SID, then they get written up,
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like this like ridiculous cycle. And I just whenever I think about getting sick at a daycare center, I just think about like my second week at the daycare center where I worked the longest. I was learning how to change those. We did the stand-up technique, which is so hard. Already.
My God,
it is a pain. It is a pain, especially when you're like feeling stressed out and everyone's kind of being mean to you, like they were for me. I'm not complaining. And then it ends up like Then the extra thing is because we're in like Seattle, where everyone wants to be environmentally friendly, we have the cloth diapers. So I had to learn how to do the stand-up cloth diapers, which is, and this was like an old generation of cloth diapers. Cloth diapers, as I've learned, it was there wasn't an insert for the cloths, so you just had to tie the cloths really tight and then just push it up really, really hard and just hope it would stay in there. So like there was no way for it to necessarily stay in there, besides just like physics, and this wasn't even the clips, it was Velcro, so it made it really hard. It just was so many things going on at once. And then this little cute boy, this little cutie guy who I love, I really like his parents a lot, and his younger sister was like one of my last students who I was with. That was really, really great. But he was kind of a mischievous kid, but kind of in that way. Yeah, but like a cute mischievous, not like a mean mischievous, as I'm sure we will talk about later in some contexts. But I was changing his diaper, and I was like, finally got like that good stupid cloth diaper set up, and then he coughed directly into my mouth, like spit into my mouth. This little like 20-month-old little guy, he has like 4 hairs on his head, just spits directly into my mouth. I am sick for like the next 2 months. So like the majority of my time for like my first year, I was just constantly sick, and I would always feel like God, like every morning I would wake up and be like, why am I doing this? Well, how can I get past this? And then like one time
a year, your first year in the center.
Exactly.
It's the 1 year that you will be the sickest.
Yeah. And oh boy, it was a lot. But it is true. I actually wasn't as sick after that. So I guess what I'm saying is herd immunity, guys. Let's all just go out there, give all your neighbors a big wet kiss on the lips. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah. God, I can probably not count how many times a child has coughed inside my mouth.
Yeah.
In my face.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just feels like it's on purpose. Like
I know, right?
Like they've walked across the room and come up right up to you. You're sitting on the floor, and they come stand in front of you as if they want something, and so you do the, oh hi, what can I?
Hi, buddy.
How can I help you? And just, and then they just walk off, and it was like that was the entire purpose.
They're like a little like whirling dervish. They just like run and cough and run away. They're sacking your immune system. Oh, yeah.
Or the other one that I love and hate is they come and they sit in your lap while you're on the floor, and they turn around in your lap to face you, and then they shove their hand in their mouth. But before you can stop them, they're trying to be very sweet, but they take that little slimy ass hand that they just stick in their mouth, and they hold your face with it.
Yes.
It's like, I love you, buddy. Thank you. That's so sweet. But
no, I know.
Yeah.
I know. They really think they're being sweet.
Oh, I know.
They really have no idea. No idea. How could something so cute be something so destructive?
Well, that's their defense mechanism. If they weren't cute, well, I'm not sure how long they would live.
And ain't that the truth?
I know that sounds horrible, but I have said from forever that the reason they are cute is because it's their defense mechanism until they can get older and run away fast.
Or or you can even go deeper and say we only think they're cute because of our because of like the biological imperative, right? Like which comes first, our definition of cute or kids being cute? It's deep, guys. It's deep. Again, I'm not on drugs right now. I'm like pretty sober nowadays, so I don't know what that means, but anyways,
I commend you, by the way. I feel for you right now. It's part of your new job, and it's not that like I hear you saying that your kids are bad. It's just the adjustment for the kids and you. And that's like, it reminds me of the beginning of the school year when I taught preschool. And that was the most tough first month. Ever. It was the most miserable because everybody's testing boundaries. You're trying to set boundaries and they're like, fuck those boundaries. Let's see what I can do. And then they're pulling each other's hair and they're setting back like it's a clusterfuck and it's miserable.
Yeah, it's I will say, listeners, Brynn has been one of my main confidants in a transition stage in my career. But it's been good, because like kids are very different in different developmental stages, right? And it's like it's important to understand that that and like and being aware of that and sort of and that every kid is different, but also there are some general trends that happen. And I think I was a little too not like I did anything wrong or these kids did anything wrong or anything, but it's interesting, and I think it's important for parents to kind of see that, and they can kind of grow with the kids in that way. But sort of how you need to have different strategies as they get older, and things that are the things that you really want to focus on with babies and toddlers are like counterintuitive just like a year later. So it's child development. And hey, if anybody has any books or interview people they would like to tell us to check out on that topic, follow us at RDB Show on Twitter or send us an email at rdbshow@gmail.com. Brynn, did you want to get back into our history section?
Yeah, that sounds great. After, I think a little cathartic venting and drawing our people in so that they feel like one with us.
Yeah, that we really have done these jobs. I promise, people. I promise. We're not stealing childcare valor. The second week I made that joke, but it's true.
Obviously we've both doing this for a very long time, and like in our own research, it's like, I just want to remind everybody, we've, done these jobs and we've been doing this for a long time, but at some point, I think we don't quite understand what's behind what we do, because it's just, behind the curtain. And as we learn, you learn, and boy, is this shit fucked up.
Yes, exactly. Well, and how, I think a thing that has been really helpful about sort of looking at the history of the childcare system in America, and not just focusing on why it sucks now, but seeing why it sucked then and then and then and then, is how they are a product of their time, not just culturally, but based off of like the political forces that make up the institutions that make these decisions. That's been a really interesting thing to think about, especially, as we're moving from, I guess we ended last time with talk about World War II and, how that maybe raised the stakes, and it raised the stakes for a lot of reasons, but, again, we both have Jewish background in some way, so it's pretty important, I guess, to that. The way that it raised the stakes for how much childcare outside of the traditional family and communal structures was needed, right? And that a lot of that sort of came in the form of more women working, and as sort of the gender roles were able to basically get that labor done. And we'll talk more about social reproduction theory very soon, by the way, to kind of go into the mechanics of that too. But, after that time period, like a lot of women who were maybe working during the war, maybe going back to being like stay-at-home mothers or things like that. But sort of after that change and sort of this new sort of post-industrial or sort of this like mid-century society that sort of began, the childcare becomes more and more a part of it becomes like more and more a part of the general state, not just like the, state-run childcare centers, but also people needing that, and that being more and more a thing that is necessary for a functioning economy. And it also is a site of great struggle for other sort of social and economic movements like the civil rights movement.
Yep.
Obviously. Go ahead.
Oh, so sorry. I mean, like you said, like it's definitely an increased like emphasis on school and like what that means and how that looks. And as we came out of the post-war, right, it was more of a social program for working low-income women that it was a social service. And so, because all of our middle-class women went back home to work in the home, and then it once again became, well, that's most important, the maternal care at home. And so it put more emphasis on, it being a social service thing for low income. But then that puts you at right back where you started, right before the war and all of that, and we're right back there with being a moral dilemma,
right.
And as we struggle with moral dilemmas, as you put us into the civil rights movement with integration, people just thought it was morally wrong to have integrated schools.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'm from the South, and the high school I actually went to was the oldest high school in the city because it was a segregated school back in back for Brown v. Board, and then it officially being enforced, right? Brown v. Board was happened in 1954, but then of course the process didn't really finish and sort of kept on going on. God, I mean, our current Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, has a pretty spotty record on enforcing integration orders, around things like school busing. But it is really interesting how, because this is a thing that I think childcare and schooling also, the childcare aspect of public schools in America in this time period, it just becomes inextricably linked, and it becomes one and the same thing, really. And the way that these are sites of both sort of, because like education has been used and could very much continues to be a way, from my perspective, I think it really is a way to reinforce different social castes, right? To sort of reinforce certain hierarchies, as a lot of these educational systems come out of an era when that was explicitly what they were for. They were to prepare the aristocracy to be aristocrats, and, as we spoke about in the last one, the working kids, the kids of working class parents, their school was working, either in the factory, in the mine, on the farm, and as it becomes a more and more broad thing, we get into conflict around some of these moral and economic and social questions. And and the ways that education becomes sort of a site of struggle in these racial justice movements, sort of has these impacts that sort of are echoing throughout time, like even to this day, right?
That's number one thing right now is like nothing has actually been new or changed. It's just revolving.
Right, exactly.
Not evolving, revolving.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's not necessarily that things have gotten worse. It's just that we are in this cycle of things. A good book that I found to kind of get a good grasp on some of the ideas of the ruling class in this time period that sort of we are still living with today. It's Democracy in Chains by Nancy MacLean. It's about this guy, James Buchanan, who was a like libertarian slash like neo-Confederate kind of like economics thinker who became sort of one of the bedrock sort of theoreticians of the Koch brothers sort of version of American libertarianism, which is basically capitalism good, racism good, everything else bad, you know? And they have rebranded of course, but sort of some of these fundamental aspects and how some of this language is still with us around things like school choice and about sort of ways that sometimes the ideas around community are used in these kind of moral ways around these economic injustice questions is a common thing, and a thing that for us, you know, us millennials and younger who are growing up in a time when, you know, schools are integrated, I guess, but it's really they're just integrated in that our neighborhoods have become more and more you know, segregated. You know, how they're, you know, this was not a process that just happened overnight. Just because the Supreme Court said that it happened, it took political organizing and lots of struggle and a lot of like counter-revolution on the side of pretty racist people, and also a lot of people who could see things like austerity and budget cuts happening and then attribute that to these social changes, which of course plays into the hands of the people who want to keep the austerity and budget cuts going because they want to have reason to blame it, right?
Oh, exactly. It's like, well, see, it's not working, so we need to defund it. And it's like, it's this back and forth. Well, it's like, we'll just take more money, and that's the reason, you know, it's
exactly.
It's
exactly
so fucked up.
No,
I mean, like it mirrors, you know, as you said, like, yes, these things have been said to change. So, example, slavery, and it abolished. Those things didn't just go away; they turned into Jim Crow laws. I mean, that's kind of how
sharecroppers who couldn't even pay enough to eat. You know, like. You know, it just would end up with similar results, just with slightly different variations.
Well, and, you know, not to try to jump forward too much ahead, but like, as we talked about, is these are just repetitive things happening over time and not really changing. And so, you know, with the segregation of schools, even though they were integrated, which I really love the little quote, with all deliberate speed,
which
basically means at your own, you know, at your own convenience. You know, and like you said, with neighborhoods, like, because of things like redlining, like, I mean, and so your schools of choice, you can decide where to put your kid in. So therefore, those schools just become naturally segregated again. They're well within the quote unquote laws. Yeah. And then it's just a constant struggle. You know, it's like white kids equals funding. You know?
Well, right. And then of course these, I don't know if we mentioned this, but like a big struggle with this in this sort of this current system, which in many ways we're still dealing with, although they added a few things which make it even worse and harder, like giving certain amount of federal funding based off of like test scores, which is a whole other disaster. But you know, in this time period, you know, like, and as it is now, you know, schools are public schools anyways are funded by property taxes, and property taxes will be based off of, you know, who owns property there and how much it's worth, and it has a cyclical effect, right? To where you are sort of keeping it it's like, again, it's like, unless you change sort of some of these base issues, it's just going to exponentially, the poorer neighborhoods will get worse schools, and the richer neighborhoods will get exponentially better schools. And then it just kind of it recreates these hierarchies that supposedly is what made our country different than like feudal Europe or something like that, right? Like but it shows sort of like, and some of these ideas around like local control or school choice or things like that can become very easily demagogued, and that childcare and education are places where this stuff, you sort of get to see the ugliest and some of the most raw sort of power politics sides of this.
Yeah. Oh, it gives me pause for a second because it's just like, it's just such mind fuckery. I mean, the the time frames, the decades all blend together. You have what the segregation academies that now also look like what we now call charter or magnet schools. And as much as they
went to a magnet school, sorry.
Well, I mean, when you went, how did you get into it? Was it a lottery?
So what it actually was, and the funny thing is they actually stopped doing the thing that made this a progressive thing in the first place. So the whole reason was, as they started to do, school integration in the Dallas school district, there were some like different court cases that went to the Texas Supreme Court, and basically they decided that they were going to have a few select schools that would be these like magnet schools. I went to like a performing arts magnet school. And what they did was, for 30 years, they had it to where it had to basically reflect the racial makeup of the entire city. So that meant that Dallas was pretty evenly, I mean, it's kind of crude when I talk about it now. And I remember seeing things on the like attendance sheets where they would list everyone's race, which is very odd in retrospect. And then I had like a lot of friends who were mixed race, and I was like surprised how some of them would come up, which was just like a whole other like odd aspect of it. But
it kind of feels like like the eugenics project, like
it's a
family history sort of like
exactly. It's like a eugenics process, but so you can have like a really dope ballet group,
Amazing. Hey, everybody needs a dope ballet group.
Exactly. Or like have like I'd say we were a pretty good jazz combo. I'm not gonna lie. We went to a few national things. Not a big deal. Check out Nadia Washington. She's pretty good. I did music with her in high school. That was pretty fun. But like, so that's sort of how they did that, right? And so that was like the way that they kept it to be sort of more egalitarian, I guess. But then eventually, as the judiciary became more and more right wing, as we're dealing with now nationally with this talk about the Supreme Court, they got rid of that. So now the school is richer, it's more white, and it's less like representative of the mission of the institution originally.
Is he talking about this? Sorry, all I can think of is the Step Up franchise.
Oh my God, my entire school was Step Up. It was Step Up plus Fame. Yeah, absolutely.
Brian and I are huge fans of the Step Up franchise.
Very good.
Yeah. So sorry, my brain just went to that. I was like, oh my God, they've got to save the school. I mean, the kid from the wrong side of the tracks is going to the school and he's the best dancer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I was not from the wrong side of the tracks, but I had some friends that were on different sides of the tracks. There are no wrong sides of the tracks here. No wrong sides.
Again, but it makes me think of Riverdale, South Side's Serpents. And
oh, yeah.
sorry, we really like...
wow. You guys like some teenage stuff.
Oh, we love that shit. Anything very like soap opera, dramatic, like ups and downs.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
It's our fucking jam.
That's why we watch The Real Housewives. So maybe we just get it from a different source.
Yeah, because you guys also love not Cider House Rules. Vanderpump. I tried to watch that and I was like, this is too much for me. I don't know.
It's a lot. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. It is an acquired taste, I think. But if yeah, it's hard to get into that kind of stuff. But I appreciate reality TV. But I realize that for some people it's a dark path. It's a very dark world.
So we thought, it'll be cute during quarantine. We're going to start watching America's Next Top Model. And, at first it's like, and as we get deeper down, we're like, this is horrifying. Oh my God. Yeah. How racist this is and how everything. And I came to find out later that a woman actually wrote a book about the reality TV and basically like, America's Next Top Model is like her main like topic source.
Oh boy!
Like, holy shit! I mean, and honestly, us talking about that right now can really play into education and race.
Yeah, I was actually going to say like the combination of like certain like the ways that sort of certain racist principles are sort of reinforced and like. It's almost kind of like in a lot of ways, especially as it's places that people of different backgrounds less in some ways just because of social and economic segregation that's been happening. It's a place where those conflicts of like more like people from different backgrounds or maybe like having administrators who maybe, let's say, are white but they're like teaching a like predominantly, let's say, Mexican American school, and how that can reinforce these racist ideas and how that sort of recreates race as as the construct, right? And like how that can then create those separations and then and how it can reinforce those feelings. And to a lot of students, that's a way that they then start to feel less worthy of success or less worthy of inclusion in a broader project. And it's a really, really dangerous and it's a really like important place and where those ideas really disseminate and kind of become more real,
Oh yeah. I mean, and you brought it back to like even our little timeline here, because you're absolutely right about that. It then equates, the quality of your education to your success, right?
Right.
So, and then again, it turns into this individualism, right? So then therefore, if you didn't try hard enough, that's your own fault, right? You were given this opportunity and you know what? We funded this, you had that opportunity, but you just didn't take it in the way you needed to do,
Right.
And it's so fucked up because it really is. They push individualism in schools, I mean, even well-meaning educators that, that are actually there that want to, do good and things. It's just so ingrained. It's so systemic that like you do it without really knowing it. And, and then we get here, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and, as we kind of went all over the place there, but I guess we're sort of still rooted in kind of that civil rights era and, the 60s, right? It's a time of great social change, but it's also the time of the beginning of the Great Society projects, which, again, like as we talked about on the last week, the New Deal has a lot of good things for sort of people on sort of like a more socialist perspective. It didn't go far enough in a lot of ways. It wasn't complete. It was very much tainted by just sort of the speaking of racism, the racist Southern Democrats who sort of were actively trying to create certain standards, and then also a thing we could talk about later is the way that certain sectors of the labor market were not allowed in to certain benefits of the new deal, particularly domestic workers, which is always brought up in the context of the racial disparity, which is very true. And it's also just a reminder, though, of like, again, they'll use whatever logic they want, but it also just helped keep labor low. It helped keep the price of nannies and maids and construction low, and that even in a time which, in retrospect seemed like, oh, this was a time when the closest thing to like a real like American center left was really making some wins, we still had a lot of goddamn pushback, so some of those gaps are because of that struggle and the fact that there was still a lot of power in capital at the time. But the Great Society, I guess, probably, we think of things like Medicaid and the like Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act are kind of a part of that. It's just Lyndon Johnson's administration, but also Headstart. And that was sort of the start of a broader federal interventions in childcare. So
Headstart is really interesting, and I think a lot of people have definitely heard of Headstart. Either they were in Headstart or not. But that is something I think we even have now. But when it started then, it being a social program again for low income children, but then it became a broader thing, and it was to be a universal thing, right? And I think they intended for it to be a universal care of children for everybody, and it should include, it included, health and like seeing a doctor or a dentist, and it was building social emotional skills, as well as it was more on like the physical well-being, well-rounded of children, of all children, and then it became not just for low income. Like I said, it was to be a universal thing. But then, as always it happens, the Republicans and the Democrats cannot agree on anything. And the Democrats really thought that, it should solely be education, because they believe that early intervention of education at that age would raise children's IQs, which then it came out that there was no support, like data supporting that.
Well, kind of, because IQ is bullshit, but that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah. And instead of just saying, oh my God, it should be a well-rounded, like we should get them school ready and care about their physical well-being, they're just like, well, nope. So no funding, right? And it's like, who can agree? So, I mean, and really, again, it turns out, it just feels like it's not just that they can't agree. It feels very purposeful in that, well, then it's just something that we really don't want to do. So if we can't decide on it, then we can't fund it, and then they just leave it there to drown. And and that's what it's been since its creation. So
no, totally. Well, and it's interesting, right? Because the time when Head Start was sort of created and instituted, then just less than a decade later comes, some people, I'm going to say the word that pisses some people off, neoliberalism, sort of the neoliberal turn begins, and I'm sure that's a topic that is very complicated, and it seems like everyone has a slightly different definition of it. But to me, I sort of think of it as basically just like a time period that begins basically just, capital having more control and more political power. And that means less desire to fund these kinds of programs. And if it is to support basically them being able to have a workforce and not sort of for that greater social good. And that ends up really affecting a lot of these kinds of programs. And and as those cuts happen, if they're going to have Head Start, that means they have to means test it more, which then means that it becomes less and less available. And then the really scary thing is then how it becomes a way, and things like the welfare programs. If you look at sort of how it was spoken about in mainstream, both did Democratic and Republican politicians, from Ronald Reagan's welfare queens to the Clinton welfare reform, it becomes another way to prey on these racist and economic sort of blaming of these greater issues of austerity and inequality, but then they transpose it onto these individual sort of ridiculous things, and then it becomes another moral game.
Yep.
And how that really has affected things like Headstart, which really should be a universe, that should be the base for our universal childcare system, in a way that honestly I think something like Medicaid should be, or Medicare for all, right?
Yeah.
We should have Head Start for all.
As I was reading from one of my books on Head Start, and it does sound so wonderful, and it's so frustrating that really it was created as a way to be universal, childcare and education, and it was actually quite planned out well. But then your R's and your D's are arguing over it only based on money and who's right and who's wrong, and instead of actually focusing on, hey, the actual children, because what I'm finding is it's never been about the kids.
Right.
It's never about, but it's all about capitalism and how to create the future laborers and how to get the most out of the laborers you already have.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing, and this is where I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on. So, is I can't help but sometimes wonder, because I'm be honest, I had a lot of, I was able to, for instance, I was able to get SAT tutoring. And I did really well on the SATs. I did much better on the SATs than I think my grades would make you assume.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, your performance in school has no bearing on your SATs, because you're literally memorizing, right? I mean,
right. That's true. Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we all, in the sort of structure of a capitalist society, we all sort of are segmented into these little families, and I'm pro family, don't worry, people. I'm not going to be calling for abolishing the family. I got a whole rant on that, but a lot of us can come with a lot of benefits, and it makes the idea of something like a meritocracy so silly and sort of impossible to truly happen in this sort of idealized way. And I kind of wonder if things like defunding of some of these kinds of programs, which are extremely efficient, using their own logic. I don't even care about the efficiency. I care about making sure that kids are, happy and engaged, and the people who take care of them are paid really well, right?
Well, exactly.
But that even in that logic, it's a way to even that playing field, to have a actual social leveling.
Right.
And I can't help but wonder, and maybe it's because I'm reading books about the end of the Russian Empire, these weird aristocrats who truly believe that social leveling would be bad for society because people have their place.
Yeah, I was having the same conversation with my dad a couple weeks ago.
It's a feature, not a bug. They don't want it to be too level, so we have to make sure that we can't make it to where more people are able to get this kind of care. It has to be processed through means testing or non-profits giving out grants. It can't be as universal, and because that would make it too equal,
Well, exactly. And yeah, that's the whole point is nobody, like you said, they think people have their place and it's not on an equal playing field. That's why, I might get my butt chewed for saying this, but like, God, my brain is just farting right in the middle of what I'm trying to say.
It's good. We're past an hour, so that's when your brain starts farting. Well, we had a little bit of time before.
True. God damn it. My brain just decided to crap out on myself.
Like people knowing they're a place, right? And like sometimes some of these policy choices maybe are a way of keeping that. Right. Not, of when we could have something much more radical and much more egalitarian. Right. Instead, we create these, we do these half measures and then act like we have a meritocracy when we really don't.
Right. Hold on, let me look up the word that I'm struggling with, man. What? Maybe you can help me. And you've seen this in schools that you've worked at, or at least maybe some like publicly funded ones where they have to have what is it that is, my brain just will not spit it out.
Oh, sure. It's fine.
A percentage of every race within it, like, gets a spot in school.
Oh, yeah.
Or even job. God damn it, my brain.
Like
affirmative action.
Yeah. There you go.
Just bullshit, by the way. I mean, it's stuff like that, right? It's disappearance of like a level playing field, but is it really like? It's just putting more attention on that, and then giving the appearance of, of special treatment.
Well, and how that can absolutely be demagogued against the intentions of a lot of people who support it, right? Like, it is a challenge, and maybe I shouldn't be the one on the show to say this, but the issues with affirmative action in sort of its first wave of implementation it wasn't really very, it did help people of color, but the main people that it helped was white women.
Exactly.
So like,
one school that I worked at, like preschool that I worked at, it was definitely something that was big there for the director. If she didn't meet that, she wasn't getting funding.
Right.
So, and it was, I don't know, it was just really appalling to me. And it's just like, why? Maybe this is just me being naive, but it's just like, man, like we shouldn't have to have this in place. Like, it should just not fucking matter. Like, we should just be able to just hire somebody on, and I hate to say merit because that's playing into, capitalism as well. But like, none of that should fucking matter, whether you get funding or not. But again,
it's a really tough one, right? Because I feel like the challenge with this is that we are focusing on the end point of the process to create more equality versus like, why are we focusing on it at this point of someone's career versus like, why aren't we making sure that schools are like funded by the state budget, so like North Seattle gets the same amount of funding as like Othello does, right? That's what I think. Those are rich and poor neighborhoods, by the way, in case you're wondering. But
Othello is a poor town.
Right. So it's a challenge that we can, I'm sure, we should really get someone to come on to talk about the sort of the non-profit world, because I do think that is a part of it, where as these things become more and more, as you say, individualized, or sort of each little group will have their little pet project and they're not as immersed in the entire system. They're giving out grants because they have like a bunch of money from Bill Gates and Bill Gates says you have to give a certain amount of money to this certain thing. Yeah, I know. By the way, I spoke with some people yesterday who just learned that he was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Come on, people.
They
get
only
it together.
Found out.
I just found out. Come on.
The plane. And and he was also at his New York penthouse where he ended up staying the night because he just got into a really great conversation with an Eastern European woman and her daughter. And just,
who doesn't love a great conversation between with two ex-model Slovenians? It's everyone. That's what they're known for. That's what the Balkans were known for in the 90s. Great conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No offense, though, to my slight Balkan partner here. All power to you. By the way, okay, this is a total tangent, and I hope this happens.
Yeah.
Because we're pretty much at time. But with Trump, being how he is, who knows? I really hope that it ends up being kind of like a Woodrow Wilson situation where he's still president, but his brain is just even more mush. And then Melania kind of gets to take over, and she uses her power to reform Yugoslavia into Michigan or something. I want to bring Yugoslavia back, and I feel like this is our greatest chance yet.
I have to tell you, maybe this is just a weird tangent, and an example of racism within other cultures and other countries.
Absolutely. So, we talked a lot about that in America. Let's spin the globe.
My great grandparents are both from what was used to be Yugoslavia. My great grandfather is from what is now Croatia, and my great grandmother was from Serbia. And my great-grandfather used to call her a hillbilly because she was from Serbia.
Yeah, well, it is more mountainous there, so I guess that's true.
Yeah. And I was just like, my God. But yeah, I know that just reminded me of that.
That's so funny. Oh, my God. Yeah, God, those Serbian hillbillies. Come on. So then what are Croatians like if we're going to do this? If Serbia are West Virginia, Kentucky, what does that make?
Part of,
Florida?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Well, there are the beautiful coasts in Croatia. But I don't know what the fuck my great grandfather was talking about. He was from you couldn't even call it a town. It was from a place called Placina. It was a mile-long stretch of road with houses along it, and that was the town. So it was nowhere near water. It was poor. So I don't know what the fuck he was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like, you don't have the culture. I can't do the accent at all. Yeah.
Another weird rant, and touching on that, is his first cousin was actually Mother Teresa.
What?
Yeah. So they grew up in different villages or whatever, but he had.
I thought she was Albanian.
No, she just went there.
Oh my God, I don't know anything.
Yeah. So
he had nothing nice to say about her.
No, what he would say is she was real fucking weird. She was always bringing in sick dying animals into the house, and basically that's all I remember him saying.
Oh my God. Rules, because that has been a long-standing thing that guy who he kind of ended up being a real asshole, but Christopher Hitchens wrote a whole book about how much of a bitch Mother Teresa is.
She is a bitch.
That really, really fits. Oh my God, that's fascinating.
Now, she was a pretty rotten human being, but I also like to attribute my cynicism, attribute that to her in that part. No, it's in my blood. Okay,
it's amazing. That is such a better story than the probably made up thing about my grandma knowing Jack Ruby. That is so much cooler. Oh my God, I knew Mother Teresa and she was a weird kid.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that is awesome.
I think he was only a year older than her, so. Yeah. So, but he left a little, he immigrated when he was 13. So it didn't spend that much time. And probably about that time is when she wanted to join the fucking nunnery or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is a whole other thing.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Whole other thing.
That's my famous family story and about racism and religion.
God, yeah, everyone's hating on them. What do you say, Serbians? Wow. You know, I would have guessed it would have been a different stereotype. Honestly, for some reason I would have thought the Serbians would be like the Midwest or something. But again, I don't know.
It's hard to tell. I've never been to any of those places, so. Yeah.
Someday we're gonna take you back, and you're gonna be like the queen of that tiny stretch of land.
Oh,
you're
gonna
conquer it.
There's like nothing. Like my dad and I, we did the Google Earth, right? To just like, because we have the address of what his old place, my papa's place was, and yeah, I mean it's just like the same rundown, nothing.
Oh my God, that is amazing. Yeah. Wow. I guess now I probably shouldn't pull the card that they don't let Jews in where my family's from anymore. So that's a bit of a problem for me to go back, but yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, and then, the worst is like the other half of my family, they're like Russian Jews, but say they're German. And yeah, so
is that like from that thing? Sorry, guys. We're doing our own weird like 19th century race science after saying how bad it was. But is that kind of the thing? Because like I from what I've read, there kind of was a like tension with like French and German Jews kind of thinking like Eastern European Jews were like dirty.
Yep.
So that's kind of what it was. They were like kind of like saying, no, we were like the nicer ones.
So like they, so my family did go from Germany to Russia, right?
But like, so did all of them. Like that's like what like the Middle Ages was.
Stick to saying that they're German.
That's like me saying I'm Israeli.
Right. But it was funny is like my cousin started doing, which I know is like bullshit at the same time.
Yeah.
Like what was that? What's the 23andMe and then the weird fantasy, the history shit.
It is.
But then she found out, she's like, holy shit, we're Russian.
No shit, dude.
Like, well, they live in Russia. I was like, well, that's what, figure that out.
That's like, what nationality means, dude.
Yeah, I was just like,
that's so funny.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I was like, yeah, but yeah, the family still sticks to that they're German. And
wow.
But yeah, not.
That is so funny.
I mean, come on, our last name is Roth.
Yeah. Come on, people, get it together.
I know. It's
my God, that is so funny.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. That, like, of course that would happen. I have a feeling that did not happen in the other direction. No. People who don't have this background may not realize all these weird, intricate things because these aren't even like the different, there's like, Sephardic Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Ethiopian Jews, like Jews from all different areas that sort of settle. These are all different kinds of Ashkenazi Jews saying that the other one sucks.
Yeah,
like that's how like internal and bullshit this stuff is, right? Like, give me a break.
Yeah. I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's just.
Oh my God, yeah. We can't help ourselves. We can't help ourselves. Oh my God, yeah. Wow. Brynn, I love learning about your family. This is fascinating. You related to Mother Teresa. That's incredible. My Nana loved that.
Oh, really?
She was super Catholic and loved Mother Teresa.
So the real creepy thing too is that my grandparents have like this painting of her hanging up in their living room, and it has one of the, it's like heavily framed, in the thick, like ornate frame. And then it has one of those lights above it. Like like those desk lamp ones. I'm trying to made of like pewter or whatever that like shines down on it, and it's really creepy as fuck. So.
That is so scary. That is actually a thing. My Nana had a lot of creepy like Catholic imagery stuff. She had all these like hand woven like I don't know, like blankets or something, but she like put it up on the wall of like prayers. What? It was terrifying, very strange. My grandma was like a very intense. She was a very like sad Catholic woman who just like that's just what she hung on to for her entire life. Like, I felt like she had like 4 different rosaries on at all times, you know.
People in religion, man. I mean, they gotta have something to grasp onto.
Something, I guess so. Yeah,
literally, I guess to grasp onto.
Yeah, I mean, after she let go of the bottle, that was the only thing she could grasp onto. So, yeah, I love my Nana though. She was a sweet lady to me. She taught me to like basketball, so it's the only sport I like. So, yeah.
Well, I think that whole rant just like. I could connect it to summing up our discussion about childcare and education, and that all that shit is just fucking ridiculous and has really no bearing in anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And how we basically, in the end, it all comes down to who has power and resources. And sometimes you don't want too many people. You don't want a small number of people to have all the power and resources. That's just that's my gut instinct. So that's where I'm gonna leave us today, Brynn.
Yes, I think that's a good spot. And next week, we can finish up on the little nugget of history we have left, but launch ourselves and everybody that's still interested in us into some social reproduction theory.
Yes, absolutely. That is probably the easiest way for us, and it's kind of complicated, but I think it's really, really helpful, and it's a way to kind of put like some of these. We're gonna talk about Marx. We're gonna talk about Daddy Marx. I know that talking about Marxism scares some people, but
I know, but
it's worth it. It's a really like helpful, like sociological way of just sort of understanding why certain things have value, and then and understanding sort of where understanding who's getting rich off what, So
children,
and even when money is not being exchanged, who's getting value out of that, and how that continues these different processes.
Yep.
So I'm excited. I thought this was really fun today, and man, Brynn, this was awesome. I'll say, everybody, if you're still listening to this, oh my God, you should give us go to iTunes, I guess. Maybe it's Apple Podcasts now. Maybe Spotify. Does Spotify do reviews? Do reviews, people. It's super helpful.
It is.
Hey, go to patreon.com/RDB show. And we'll give you a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to our 2 people who have given us money. It's my wife and your husband.
I know. They're so supportive, aren't they?
Very supportive, aren't they?
I know. I feel like
thank you so much.
You're like the kids that like the moms and dads buy their chocolate bars.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to at school. That's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. And my mom bought all the samosas for my sisters. But
the samosas are good. So
those are so good.
She's just doing it for herself. Pop those suckers in the freezer.
Yeah. Who knows? And just a few boxes just disappeared, and there's brown things on the floor of Ben's room. I don't know. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. That was Brynn,
and that was Ben,
and that was Red Diaper Baby.
Bye, guys.
Bye.